Hi, I'm Richard.
Hi, Richard. I'm Joel. Nice to meet you.
Joel, nice to meet you as well. Thanks for putting this together.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I was thinking it'd be very helpful to me to hear what everybody else is planning, and I figured it'll be helpful to all of us. So why not?
Yeah, that's great. Very good. I've been to Olivet a couple of times. I love going around Michigan and seeing campuses and everything. And I taught the last 3 years at Spring Arbor University, but this last year, I mean the 3 years before that, but this last year I've been at Jackson College.
Okay,
Jackson.
good for you.
They haven't
Yeah,
had a choir program in 8 years until they asked me to come back and start it. So,
no kidding. Well, good for you. I'm glad they have you then.
well, thanks.
Yeah, that's I just heard some rumors about what's been going on at Spring Arbor and some of the shifting around they've done.
Yeah, it's pretty rough.
Oh man.
Pretty rough, and hardest of all on students, as you can imagine. I mean, it
Yeah.
affects them pretty deeply. How long have you been at Olivet?
Just finished my second year.
Great,
Well, entering my third.
excellent.
Yeah, I
And where'd
taught
you?
well high school for 20 years prior to Olivet.
Great,
Uh,
great.
yeah, it's been a nice change.
Oh, I bet. And your experience is invaluable for students. That past experience. I taught 15 years at the high school level
Mm,
before finishing my DMA and then going on. So it's a great experience.
it sure is. Boy, a lot of highs and lows on every end for me.
Yeah, absolutely,
Good for
absolutely.
you. Well, I'm glad they have you. And
Thanks.
you go from one tragic situation to another, a good situation where they're trying to grow something.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we're small right now, but good possibilities for the future. I mean, you know, notwithstanding this pandemic situation, but
I hear you.
and I don't know. I mean, I'm sure we'll get into this, but it just doesn't look good for
Yeah,
being able to sing
yeah,
until we get a vaccine. I don't know, man.
yeah. I don't either.
It's just heartbreaking, isn't it? It's just so.
It is, and I'm not sure. And from what I hear, there are a number of different people, a number of different institutions going in different directions. So it'll just be interesting to hear how many, what everybody's got planned. I have no idea.
Absolutely.
So
Well, I'll let you welcome everybody as they come on if you want. So.
yeah, sure. Thanks. Hey, how's it going?
All right, how are you guys?
Good. Good to see you.
Good, you too.
Tell us your name and where you are.
I'm Joe Bentley from Rochester University.
Wonderful. I'm Richard Hinsey. I'm at Jackson College.
Hi, Richard. Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to put my name in here.
I think if you just click on your name, you might
There it
be able
is.
to do that.
See it. There we go. Now I can see it.
Yeah, this will be fun. We'll see a lot of people coming on now.
Yeah, good. Well, it's a crazy time, isn't it?
Sure is.
We were just talking about how heartbreaking it is for
Mm-hmm.
all of us choral singers and musicians. And
Oh, it really is. Yeah.
my accompanist she's just devastated. She has 4 children, and that's the only thing that helps her get up in the morning. And I try and encourage her, but
Mm-hmm.
that's all she does is accompany freelance for
Yep.
different colleges and high schools. And
Yep. Well, just this afternoon, I got an invitation from a former student to bring one of our groups to a Black Lives Matter protest and to do some singing. And I said, well, how's that going to be? I mean, is it going to be inside, outside? What's it going to be? So, so until we know.
Yeah. Hi, Clayton.
Yeah. just crazy.
Clayton, how are you?
Oh, just living the dream. That's like we all are, right?
Yes.
This is what everybody wanted. And I've talked to I don't know. At first when this all happened, I was really sad for the people who would announce their retirements and were having to, they were losing the opportunity that they really should have had for a real send off and a final concert and that kind of stuff. But when we all start facing what's going on in the fall, I know a couple other people who got to the end of the school year and said, you know what? Goodbye.
Yeah.
I'm pulling the plug. So, I've kind of, gone through all the stages of grief and panic that everybody else has. But actually, at this point now, I'm really excited about some possibilities of ways of doing things we've never been able to do before. And we're going to figure it out somehow. And there might be some things that could happen that'll be really exciting.
Yeah.
But I had to go through an extended period of mourning before I was ready to
Oh, yeah.
get there.
Brandon.
Brandon?
Hi, Mike.
Hi guys. How's everybody?
Good.
Nice to see everybody.
Hello.
Here we are.
Yeah.
Really?
Hello.
Hi, Shirley.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
So good to see you.
So good to see you too.
We'll just give another couple minutes for anybody that is still trying to log on right now, and then we'll get started. So good to see everybody.
Hi, everyone.
Hello,
Hi
Pearl.
there.
Hi, Pearl.
Hi.
How's the
Brandon, did you have
traffic where
facial
you're?
hair?
Hey, Brandon, how's the traffic where you're sitting?
Why?
But Brandon looks like he's right on the street there. That's awesome.
Oh.
Traffic looks clear.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I'm not going to try to scare anybody with any of my virtual backgrounds.
Hi. Oh, thanks, Kevin.
So good to see so many of us.
For sure.
Yeah. So, Mike, are you going to get a slice of the pie on that check line, that line of check products? Products?
I have my attorneys looking into
Oh,
it.
good, good.
That was crazy, wasn't it?
It was really cool.
All the time I've spent in Germany and the Czech Republic, I've never seen that before.
No, who knew that it was a thing? But now you do.
Yeah, that's right.
Hi, Kimberly.
Oh, hi, Kim.
Hello.
Oh, good. Brandon's going to be with us. Brandon Waddles. He's new.
Hey everybody, it's good to see
Brandon.
you.
Hello.
Hey,
Brandon.
pleasure.
Well, I suppose we can get started here. It's so great to see you all. Thank you all for joining us today. I know all of us are in somewhat of a, we're all enduring the same trials right now of what the fall is going to look like at our colleges and our universities. And I know that when the first ACDA webinars came out from the national headquarters, and I saw those, Olivet College started going into the planning stages for the fall. And I just for a short time I thought, gosh, what are we going to do? And I felt kind of alone in this whole thing. And that's when I thought of the idea of all of us, putting our heads together and seeing. I was curious what some of my colleagues are doing in other institutions, and I bounced the idea off of a few of our colleagues, and they liked the idea of us just getting together and talking a little bit about where we're at and what's going on, what our plans are for the fall. So I have some preliminary ideas for my ensembles this fall, but I'm sure that they're going to change a lot as we discuss tonight and get some more ideas, what everybody else is doing, what is happening with choral music around our state. So for those of you that don't know me, I see a few unfamiliar faces, and just want to let you know, introduce myself. I'm Joel Moore. I'm the Director of Choral Activities at Olivet College, and I'm also the ACDA chair for the R&R chair for college and university choirs in the state. And so that's kind of how this came about. Before we get going, we had everybody on mute, just a few logistical things here. We had everybody on mute as they were coming in. We're all professionals here, so I don't see a problem with just questions being asked. And, you know, if we have a couple people that are talking at the same time, we may just have to exercise a little patience until we can get there. But we'll also use the chat a little bit for some questions that we may have, just where everybody can you know, chime in and let us know what their thoughts are on any particular issue. We are recording this meeting. I've had a few people contact me that they can't be here, but they really want to hear the content of the meeting, what everybody is up to and what their thoughts are. So we are recording it. Our president, Clayton Parr, and I have talked a little bit about it. He asked that I type up a summary of the meeting once we are done. And I'm not exactly sure how we will make that available to everybody, but I'm sure once we get done with this and Clayton and I talk again, we will send you, either he or I will send you a message about how people can view this. So if they weren't able to see it, they can still get the content of our discussion this evening. So yeah, so that's kind of how this whole thing came about for me. Was I'm just curious what everybody else is up to, and I thought you might be curious as well to know what the plan is for the fall. I've heard rumors for some of your institutions, but I would rather hear directly from you. What I would like you to do now, I guess, to start off the discussion on the chat, if you all would go onto the chat, and was wondering if you would on there put down what institution you teach at and what the plan is for the institution for the fall. So as you're doing that, I'll tell you, Olivet College right now is planning to be back 100% in the fall with residency with that. But I've heard that that some other colleges might not be doing that. So I think all of us could have a chance to see what everybody is doing, whether you're doing in-person classes, whether your college is planning on doing everything online again, you know, what your plans are. And I know you're all capable of reading too, but just so we don't have all the awkward silence. And by the way, before we get into that, hopefully you saw in the chat, Clayton said that we'll put it on the ACDA Michigan website, all of the results of tonight. So, so Eastern in-person classes, Jackson College, 100% online. Henry Ford Community College, mostly remote. Kelvin, in person with an earlier release before Thanksgiving.
Yeah, let me just clarify that a little bit. Some of our courses will go online. It's the choirs that they were kind of prioritized classes that for which online just doesn't work. So I suspect that our choirs, our ensembles will be more prioritized for in-person and the other more online.
Very good. Mock Community College, hybrid face-to-face and online. MSVMA, yeah, I invited Eric to join us too, so he would know what we're all up to, and he could chime in from the Michigan School Vocal Music Association, what they are planning as well. So still trying to figure that one out. Flint, 75% online, 25% in person. Gabriella, if you don't mind me asking, how will that look to the instructors? Do the faculty decide whether they're online? Are you being told what's online, what's in person?
We have been given a choice to choose between 5 different formats. One of which is in person entirely, and then there's several other formats for half in person and half online. It's called synchronous and asynchronous teaching, and then complete online teaching. So it looks like our music classes are given, just like Pearl said, some preference, some priority for in person, and everything is based on space. They've been measuring rooms and square feet and how many students can fit in one room, considering the distance that is required of 6 feet. So we're moving forward with planning for in-person instruction. Students will have to wear masks, so that's the part of the puzzle that, to me, I can't wrap my brain around it. So with the mask requirement, I just don't know what kind of singing is going to happen with even in small groups, even in person with a mask. It's just going to be hard. And I don't know if we will be able to have concerts. We might be able to live stream or videotape and put on our websites, or maybe have audience with distancing, but very small, limited number of people. So that's the talk. How it's going to materialize, we will just have to live and see.
Right. Well, thank you. I guess just going down the list here, Oakland University from Mike, doing hybrid with some classes in person, some online. For the school, it's up to each professor as to what we do. Will Nichols, Alma College is planning to have in-person classes beginning August 24th, finishing up by Thanksgiving. Clayton, Parr, Albion, in-person instruction, modified academic schedule. Grand Valley State, hybrid instruction, large ensembles will break into chamber ensembles. And I'll put together some virtual choir experiences. Sorry, I know you all can read too, but again, Northern Michigan University, planning face-to-face, plan social distance. Our ensembles will be space limited, determined by rooms. We will likely max out at 25 singers and dismiss before Thanksgiving. Kalamazoo College, tentative planning in person. Stephen Zork, Andrews, in-person classes. Andrews University. Wayne State, hybrid, still in planning. Joe Bentley, Rochester University, current plans have full classes. Kimberly Dunn Adams, WMU, in-person classes, some offered hybrid online, synchronous online, partially synchronous online, asynchronous. Kim, do you mind elaborating on that one a little bit?
The university is resuming in-person instruction, but professors have been given the task of determining which method their classes should be taught for billing purposes, because each kind is billed differently. And so some classes will be taught in person, some will be hybrid, which is 51% online or more. Some will be completely online. And then with online classes, it's synchronous, meaning you have to show up at the same time, partially synchronous, meaning sometimes you do, sometimes you don't, and asynchronous is do the work at your own will.
Thank you. Eric, starting at Hope College in the fall, congratulations. Hope College is still in process of making final decisions about the fall. Eric, how do you say your last name?
Reyes.
Reyes?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, glad to have you with us.
Thanks for having me.
Kent Walters, Cornerstone University, full residency, prep for partial virtual if necessary. Gerald Blanchard, Kellogg Community College's choirs on hiatus, but classes are online, including lessons. Andrews University, August 24th, November 24th.
Hey, Joel, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Down for about 10, 15 more minutes. But for the people who haven't made a decision, or even if you have, is everyone aware of the aerosol disbursement study? That's about 90 other organizations. We had a meeting this last week, and that's planned to be released July 3rd. So if you haven't heard about it or know what's happening, that's going to be, I think, the ultimate resource to know what's safe. So if we haven't made decisions, or if there's freedom to change after July 3rd, I think that's a good benchmark time.
Now, are they going to be giving recommendations then, or is it? I think what I had heard was it was the study results were going to be available then, but we weren't going to be looking at any recommendations until sometime later this summer.
The original hope was to, they're a few days behind. The original hope was to have it compiled with some sort of recommendation by the end of June, if not the first week of July. Now they were a little behind in the lab. So July 3rd is the date that it should be completed. And then I think it should be compiled into some form of recommendation within the next week after that. If you don't know about the study, I'll pull up the link. I'm just parked in my car right now. I'll pull up the link and post it in the chat.
Thank you.
This is the one that's co-sponsored by ACDA and a whole bunch of other organizations.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah.
I thought that's not the case. Aren't you talking about Colorado State University, which has not raised enough money yet to do it?
They have raised enough money. They were looking to raise $250,000, but that was for they're duplicating the study on the East Coast. So they certainly had enough to start on time in Colorado. So it's underway as we speak.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay.
You know, I have to say, I just emailed with the musical head of that, and he said that they're going. I'm getting different information. He said they're going for 103,000, and they're about halfway there. This was yesterday. He told me. So, are we talking about different studies? This is Colorado State University.
Who are you talking with?
One of the 5 leaders of the thing. I can't remember his name right now. I can look it up. Anyway.
I guess just continuing with the chat real quick.
Yeah.
Go ahead and look that up and feel free to chime back in. I knew that part of my job here is just to facilitate a discussion and get it going, but once it gets going, that's fine. We'll discuss away. So no concerts at Albion. NMU's concerts will be limited to 45 people in the audience. I know Olivet, we've talked about again live streaming concerts, maybe like some smaller group, individual instruction, or just doing a lot of sectional type of work and then coming together, you know, spread out in our church, which is where we hold our concerts, you know, spreading out at that point, and then for our full group rehearsals, and then doing some type of live streaming. Michigan Tech striving for in-person, but we have all options for remote teaching, online teaching, in person with flexibility to go remote. Music ensembles will be rehearsing. Rosa Center Stage, I think I pronounced that right, sorry if I didn't, which can accommodate our instrumental ensembles other than the huge pep band. Choirs is tougher. I plan on canceling the concert choir, that is college community with singers age 18 to 80 plus. Chamber choir is still trying to figure out whether we will rehearse. Brandon Johnson, no concerts planned for fall, perhaps winter semester. Henry Ford College, no live rehearsals or concerts. They're still working whether there will be audiences. We hope to stream performances if they happen.
Right, it's either streaming or I'm actually thinking about using some of this time to do some video production. You know, put together a Lessons in Carols broadcast. We do a Lessons in Carols every year. We can't do it the way that we've always done it, and so this might be the year to do something different, to make to get small groups of students together to do rehearsals and a series of recordings and filmings, then put together a production that we can make available. because like a lot of you, everything's all of our in-person instruction is finishing by Thanksgiving, which means that there might be enough time for some post-production after Thanksgiving and put together something like that. So.
Right. Well, I think, thank you, Eric, for putting the link into the chat. And then Pearl had mentioned Calvin University choir split into smaller ensembles and rehearse in much larger space like our chapel and auditorium. All fall concerts will be pre-recorded and released the day of. Lots of performance opportunities given our daily chapel lessons and carols. This is a big one. Lots of recording projects related to our Institute of Christian Worship. Yeah, so one of the things that Olivet's doing right now is they're planning to come back, as I mentioned, in the fall, but there's contingency planning happening all the time of what happens, if there's a surge in the virus again in the fall, as a lot of people are predicting what's that going to look like. And so we are trying to come up with a plan right now for rehearsing in person. I'm being that we're rebuilding this program, the ensembles are not large, so even if I do sectionals, we're looking at a small amount of students in one space at a time. But we're also looking at, if we're forced to go strictly online again, that there are plans to do that as well. And so I guess this is the part where I would like to just open up for some dialogue. I guess there was one comment in the chat about the face shields. And I have heard, again, I don't know if it's true or if it's just rumors, but I've heard some rumors that that some of our institutions may be looking at that. So I'm personally curious as to whether any of you have plans to implement face shields and what that looks like, where you're getting them, how you're planning to use them, or any of that. Does anybody have plans to do that in the fall? Do you, Mike? You want to speak to that?
Yeah, we do. We're having face shields made for all the professors at least. Plus, I've ordered about 10 of them myself. We'll see if they get here, if they're all back ordered. But all of the professors, and specifically all the conductors, are going to be given face shields by the School of Music, Theater, and Dance. I don't know about putting them on singers. I don't know that that's something that's worth it. I'm waiting for the aerosol study like all of us, but definitely I'll be wearing one if we do any rehearsing in person at all.
Is that something anybody else is using as well? Now, for those of us who want to check into that, Mike, where is there a company or a resource that you're using?
So the university's having them made on a 3D printer there on campus.
Okay.
And apparently it's pretty easy. I also, honestly, I just went on Amazon and looked up face shields and ordered several to see if any of them would come in the time that they said they would. And you can get them, disposable, pretty cheap, about $3, $4 a piece, to very fancy ones with headgear and adjustable. So I ordered a few different types to just see what they were myself. But the university's going to print them for us. So.
Very cool. Yeah, Aaron?
I actually just got an email from our bookstore yesterday asking us to order what we need for PPE, which I thought was very interesting. So I assume they're wanting the students to purchase their own face shields or whatever is required by the professor. So nothing has come down from the university on our side saying you need to wear face shields, but I've certainly been toying with that idea, but apparently our bookstore wants us to order them. So that's another way to go around it. I mean, you can have your books, you can just require that your students come in with a face shield and order it at the bookstore.
So we have the face shields, but then I've also heard about some people may actually be using like a plexiglass type of shield in rehearsal settings, that sort of thing. Is that anything that any of you are looking at?
We are. but mostly because of our band. And I've talked about that as well for the choral settings, but I don't know that it's moved forward yet. It was just one of those ideas that we were brainstorming.
Sure. And Mike, is that something you guys are using as well?
The band is going to use them a lot. They've purchased some or building some for the choir rehearsal room, except that now it looks like we can't fit in the choir rehearsal room appropriately distanced. We're also building custom ones 7 feet high with wheels on them that can be used for applied lessons.
Okay. Now, David, I hope you don't mind me singling you out, but there was rumor that MSU is looking at that as well. Is that something you guys are doing? Oh, I think you're muted. Let's get you unmuted.
Did you, can you now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Awesome. Yeah, I just, for some reason, I can't get the chat to work. So I would just preface this by saying that we have a donor who is a retired infectious disease physician, who has been called back into work by the FDA to look at clinical data on clinical trials, and who's a friend of Anthony Fauci's because he worked with the NIH a lot. He worked for Upjohn in Kalamazoo, and his dad was a choir director for years at Colorado State. So he himself is a singer, but he's not a musician. But I have really relied on him a lot. So the direction in which we're moving is based to a large extent on what he has recommended, which is, we'll rehearse in our 450-seat hall. I think right now I'm feeling like the most we can get in there is about 12. That's with people spaced 18 to 20 feet apart. He is not a big fan. He thinks that if we just use pieces of plexiglass on a music stand, that would mitigate the risk as well as anything else. His take on those shields, which are basically splatter shields from the OR, is that they're hard to clean. Then you're dependent on whether students bring them or not. So he just thought a flat surface, particularly with good ventilation and with students spread out as much as 20 feet would work. And then I would be on stage behind some piece of plexiglass. The pianist would be probably on the other side of the stage. If over the course of the summer, my hope is that maybe that recommendation of 20 feet will shrink. There's a report, you probably have read it, from Germany that suggests maybe it can be less than that. Of course, they also suggest you only rehearse 15 minutes at a time. So anyway, but that's where we are. We like many other schools, we say we're going to be in person, but what that really means is that about 50% of the classes on campus will be online. About 25% will be in some kind of hybrid form, and then 25% in person. So we'll do lessons in person, chamber music in person, the things that, and then choirs and ensembles in person, choirs maybe, if, like I said, 12 at a time, maybe 16 at a time.
Thank you.
Sure.
I have a question. Kevin Dewey, Henry Ford Community College in Dearborn. I might be the only community college person here. It's a small, college with, hey Richard, obviously it's all commuting. Do you guys that are at universities with students living on campus in dorms and things like that, do you feel more pressure to have in-person classes? Or do you feel like that's perfectly fine on your own? You think that's a good idea? Or do you feel like you're being pressured to do that a little bit? Curious.
I'll just say that NMU made the decision on May 1st to go face-to-face, which I thought was very premature, but that was their decision. I think that they want the enrollment money, and I sort of feel like that might get walked back. Things possibly increase, I don't know.
I would just say that our president is also an infectious disease doctor, so I also trust him. Our decision was supposed to be made July 1st. It ended up being made about June 1st. I think there's a huge amount of pressure to get students on campus in some fashion. And as an associate dean, I wrestle with these things every day about how we're going to actually operationalize it. But if you asked me if I was 100% confident that this is all going to work and be safe, and yeah, I'm not sure that I think it will.
What kind of amazing microphone are you using? You're using an amazing microphone.
I am?
Yeah.
I'm just using my laptop.
Wow.
But I couldn't join it through Zoom. I had to join it through it was through Skype, which is actually Teams. I just kept clicking things till I got into the meeting. So I have don't ask me any technical questions.
Well, thanks for your
But
perseverance.
I think that, back to the subject, this is the really dangerous juncture that we're at, right? I mean, in terms of higher education overall, is the amount of pressure and to come back, especially with student surveys showing that a third or more that if a college makes a decision, we're going to be online. That in some cases, I mean, especially with small residential liberal arts colleges, that as many as a third of our incoming and returning students may vote with their feet and say, if it's online, I'm taking the semester off. I mean, I think it's important to acknowledge the pressure that's there. And so, within that, if we're looking at some sort of hybrid kind of with, students on campus, but with some classes happening face-to-face and some classes happening remotely, the decisions about actually how to deploy that in our music instruction are at this point. I have a meeting tomorrow. My president's going to be there. Maybe I'll find out something new. But a lot of this stuff is really falling to us, and it's a huge responsibility.
And Clayton, let me add, I agree with you on that point. Kevin, you're not the only community college person. I am as well. It also comes down to the population. We have, obviously being a community college, I have a lot of older non-traditional students, and they are at risk, greater risk than my traditional college age students. So I had to make a decision, which was a very difficult decision, to put my choirs on hiatus as early as May 6th. We are coming back in January, that is the plan, and the college obviously has put money to support that return, including buying 2 brand new pianos, and they're buying us new choral risers, just to assure me that they are in support of us coming back in January, because people are always looking to cut for budget purposes. But it had to come down to the safety, and the science is just all over the place. No one really knows how safe we are. And personally, I could not bring my singers back and then run the risk of having someone get sick and then having that responsibility on my shoulders. So it was a hard decision for me, but I think I made the best one I could at the time based on the information that I had.
So Gerald, if I just follow up on that, we are also canceling Choral Union, which is our at-risk population. We're actually going to probably shrink some other things too, just to try to simplify things. I think we'll learn a lot in July with this. I agree with you. There's I wouldn't say the science is all over the map, but there's certainly not unanimity. So my hope is that we'll have a little more clarity. If the studies show that what we've proposed is not going to be safe, we'll go to a plan C or D. But I feel, just because of the people, the person we've been talking to, I feel confident and safe with distancing of 20 feet and good ventilation in a big space. But I would also say, someone said earlier, when this started, I thought we were going to get lots of guidance from the upper administration, and they would sort of set the parameters, and basically they're punting, I think, and then relying on us and our professional organizations and our I don't know, inventiveness to try to solve this, which I think I agree with you is a huge responsibility. But I feel pretty good about the decisions we've made in the choral area, and in the last week or so, we've moved in the music school in general. We've moved any class that has, well, we've moved them all to as much as possible to bigger classrooms. So if 6 feet, if 6 to 8 feet of distancing for everything except singing is a safe space, then I think we've made some good decisions and workable decisions.
Yeah,
Something to add.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
The other thing I
sound
would
like
say
I
is,
was complaining.
say again?
I didn't mean to sound like I was complaining about the amount of responsibility. It's
Oh, I didn't. I
it's
don't.
just-
I
it's
don't.
just something
I
that,
didn't.
yeah, it's just
I
something
didn't.
that I think we should work through, and it's also really great that to have administrators that are not imposing a one size fits all kind of thing on you from on high, to really look at, we have some issues in music and performing arts that are different than our colleagues in the history department have. And so
Yeah,
it's
I
nice
didn't think.
not to have a one.
I didn't think you were complaining. It sounded like you were complaining at all. I think you sort of capture the feeling that we all have. I mean, it's a huge responsibility.
Well, I think it's pretty clear that administrators are not going to want to be outliers on this. They're not going to want to make a decision for Alma College or for Albion or Michigan State that is different from all the rest of the decisions being made. So they're punting, like you said, David, to us to decide what's best. But that leaves a lot of responsibility on our shoulders. Was it Gerald, did you mention about not wanting to be responsible for making a decision that will impact one of your students? We all feel that way. Though quite frankly, we're the ones at most at risk from this.
Right.
Kimberly, I think you were wanting to say something.
Yeah, is it me?
Yes.
Okay, something small to add is I asked for a microphone because if we're gonna, if we're separated that far and I have to teach, and in fact, we're not gonna do like a full hour rehearsal, so there'll be shorter rehearsals. I just don't want to be screaming the whole day.
Yeah.
There'll be more hours, just because it's just not the 1 hour that we have. So I expect to go, for example, into 2 hours with smaller groups. But one of the first things I ask is I need a microphone. I can't be yelling the whole day into, this distant choir.
Yeah, that's perfect.
That's a good idea.
Kim, I think you were trying to say something too.
Well, I just put a question in the chat. We were talking about being comfortable rehearsing in person and not wanting to put students at risk. I know I've got 3 or 4 students that are immunocompromised, young ones, and I've been trying to figure out what sort of alternative coursework to offer them. For instance, we've got some students that have to have a large ensemble requirement for graduation, and they may only have this year to get that done. Is anybody offering alternative coursework for students that don't feel comfortable in choir?
Still working on it, trying to figure some things out, because we have everybody has to be in an ensemble every semester. The other thing is NASM will let us waive the ensemble requirement for a semester or two for somebody if it's an extenuating circumstance, and still let them graduate. So if you have a petition process to let them just get out of the ensemble, you could do that too. I think that's dangerous because then everybody will want to get out of it.
But even within the NASM guidelines, the NASM normally says that students need to be in ensembles. It says the ensembles can vary in size and nature.
Right.
So there's a lot of wiggle room there.
Yeah, it could be a quartet or something smaller.
I'd like to know how many of you are planning to give concerts this fall. Would you just raise your hand if you think your school might give live concerts?
I'm with Clayton on this one. It's a maybe, depending on if we are able to rehearse in small groups and possibly stream it.
We may live video stream, but I'm not going to do it with an audience in the room. It would have to be in a very large church or the basketball arena.
Which, by the way, that's something that our band director was talking about at Olivet College, was to possibly rehearse. Can't believe I'm saying this to all of you, but possibly rehearse like in the gymnasium where there's enough room to really, spread everybody out appropriately.
We have asked about it here.
Yeah.
We might have the possibility of looking at if we have live performances only allowing students to attend. And so it it sort of it keeps us sequestered from the community in terms of what they're doing. But we're working on cleaning materials for the performance hall. The performance hall seats about 1,000, a little over 1,000, and they're looking at ionization, some things that they're going to be going through and spraying so that it cleans out the space. But still, we would only have we wouldn't have very many people to be able to attend. So.
Does anybody have facilities people who are looking at this UV light technology? The idea is basically you kind of beam UV light up around the ceiling, and it really cuts down on transmission. Anybody run into that?
Mental faculty are trying to get a handle on it for use of cleaning instruments and dealing with, the methods courses and all of those kinds of things when the students return instruments. So they're looking into it, but I haven't heard that it's going any further than that.
Just wondering how expensive it is. I don't know how many of you are in the Chorus America virtual conference this week, but they had a guideline, and I can put this in there about, it's really geared more at community-based choirs about ways to begin ramping up during the season. But there was some suggestion in there that independent choruses might consider investing in their own own equipment for enhancement of ventilation to make their spaces safer, performance spaces. I can't imagine that. I can't imagine being an independent chorus and putting, like Detroit Concert Choir, going to put a ventilator in your budget.
Yeah, I don't think so. I wish.
Sorry, go ahead.
Someone had asked the question about rehearsing outside, and in about 2 weeks, if the paperwork gets approved, I'll be taking a test group to the parking ramp outside Miller Auditorium and testing the acoustic there to see if we can rehearse in the parking ramp, because if it rains, you're still covered. And so we'll be giving that a shot and seeing if it works before I put it in my contingency plan. We've been told that Miller Auditorium, which seats 3,500 and would be an ideal place to spread out rehearsal, will probably be shut, possibly forever.
Wow. Forever?
Financially, the pandemic has made it really difficult.
What?
To function. Well, they're independent from Western.
Oh no.
Wow.
Yeah. So any event at Miller Auditorium that's held by a Western group, we pay them for usage of that hall, even though it is on campus.
Will the cars be coming and going in the parking structure while you're rehearsing?
I know this from having hosted the ACDA Michigan conference at Western, that for $150, you can rent the first level of the parking garage and they'll block it off for you. So I'm actually looking at reserving 1 day a week so that the choirs can hold full rehearsals. But that's only, again, if this works.
Kim, do you know what that does to the distancing for your students? If you're in a, primarily open ventilation, would that reduce that number of 20 feet maybe down to something more reasonable?
Well, I don't know. I think that depends on the research that comes out. I would still plan on being very aggressive and distancing them fairly far from each other. In fact, that would partially be the point of being out there. But I was singing in there by myself illicitly on campus the other week, and the ring was kind of nice.
As you know, I graduated from Western, and I may have been guilty singing out there before myself. So,
what are you all doing about senior recitals?
We have plans to, that's probably one of our highest priorities. It is our highest priority in terms of performance, our student degree recitals, probably with no audience, or maybe something like 5, like minimal audience.
But they will go on in your auditorium?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, or one of our recital halls.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else?
We finished the year, we had, I don't know, 8 or 10 senior recitals left when we shut down. And we finished the year by having them sing with piano accompaniment from the internet or made by their accompanist and put it on video, one video straight through from a location that they felt was appropriate. And we graded it that way.
Okay.
I think that's what we'll probably keep doing.
And jury exams, do you all have thoughts about how you'll handle voice juries?
Well, for us, it's the same process. They are given a rehearsal track and they perform their repertoire and record it. And then that is then sent to me, which I then distribute to the other faculty that are grading that jury. And that's how we grade it. And the student will receive feedback via email and get a grade. That's how we're processing. At least that's how we did it at the end of this semester. Even though we stopped teaching face-to-face, we shifted to online Skype lessons. So everything was electronic. And that seemed to work. And that's what we're going to carry through in terms of process this coming fall.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else on that one?
We had them record and then send in, and there's some kind of a platform, I can't remember. I'm like Miss Zero Tech, but there's something that as you listen, you actually type in all your comments and they'll receive it. So we were asked to give our comments by a certain date, and then all of those the students got right away. So it was an email, and the teachers and the jurists can all see your comments.
Girl, that sounds a little bit like Flipgrid.
Probably. I I'm so thankful for our office manager who all organized all of that. So it's like, here's your list, and then here are all their jury, the repertoire, all of that. And so I could access it right away, just sat down and then graded them and gave the comments and typed everything in, and it was done.
It might be a program called Go React also. John Reed used that for teaching conducting, because you can apparently add comments in real time, or you can stop it and add comments so that they have it at the time that it matches where they are in the song.
Yeah, I'll ask our office manager if I can send that. I'll send that information along if I can get it.
David, could you send a link to that, or you said that was called Go React?
It's called Go React. Yeah, I haven't used it. John used it to teach conducting for the second half of the semester, and the students I think thought it worked really well. He used it for both for undergrad conducting and for grad student one-on-one lessons. I'll try to get that from him and ask him to send it to you, but a link. But yeah.
Thank you.
What about teaching conducting? Are people going to try to do that live? Teaching it over Zoom was not a great thing at the end of the semester. Anybody figured that out?
I am planning to do it in person. I have about 12 students signed up, and the classroom is large enough to allow for space. So my plan is to have that in person, that class in the fall.
Similarly, our undergrad class is taught in a big room, and so I believe that Sandra is going to teach that live. They can be 20 some feet apart, 18, 20 feet apart. I'm not actually very comfortable doing private lessons in my office, so I'm probably going to try to get, as are most of our applied people, see what's available in terms of perhaps a classroom. It doesn't have to be a lot bigger. I just am not quite comfortable with.
Yeah, I'm thinking private lessons in a classroom.
Yeah,
just
but
over Zoom.
we have a weekly master class, and that I hope, if it all works according to plan, will be in that same space with no more than 12 singers singing in the choir, and then the conductor on stage.
We've been asked to organize our course. It's online first. And so my conducting class will have less priority than the other ensembles for in-person. So I have to structure it that way. And then if we can go in person, fine. So I have to start with an online way of doing things first for the conducting class. And I might just split them into smaller groups. And again, it's more hours than the actual, the contact hours will be in a way less for them, but more for me because I have to split them into smaller groups.
Anyone else on conducting classes? Would you all, you've probably used the reactions before on the bottom where you've got the little thumbs up or the applause or whatever. Will you use the thumbs up reaction if you are planning to have some in-person singing this fall, so we can just get an idea of how many people are planning to do some in-person singing? So 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't know if I got a chance to count them all before they started disappearing. It looks like I'm guessing around 8 to 10 out of the 25.
I counted 9.
You counted 9? Okay.
But I could have missed somebody.
Well, right. And I know that looks different for different people. I know some of the large groups are being canceled and some smaller ensembles are, but that's helpful to me. And Gabriella had a question earlier about face masks. The 9 folks who are planning to have some singing, are you planning to have your singers wear face masks or face shield of some kind, or just traditional open singing?
I think I would wait till the college tells me that we have to wear face masks to do it. I'm already planning to divide my groups up into smaller groups. We're fortunate that we're only 1 credit, so we don't have to worry about, and we have, 3 to 5 hours of rehearsal time a week, so I can divide the kids up and still meet the minimum amount of class time per credit. So I think I'll probably go to 8 to 12 singers and spread around our chapel. If the college insists that everyone wear masks at all times, then we will. But I'm going to let the president and the provost be the one who makes that decision.
We have been told that if any in-person classes take place in the fall, everybody will have to wear a mask, and they would be there will be entrance points in the buildings, and students will have to, when they walk in, they would either have to bring their own mask, or if they don't have a mask, they will be sent to the DPS office to pick one. Same for faculty, but people would not be allowed in the building without a mask. And now the other thing that they're doing for us is an online health screening before you come to the building. You have to answer a few questions. It's about a 30-second survey you have to take before you come to campus, and then you have to show a proof that you've taken the screening online, and then you are allowed to come in the building.
I don't know that that's been discussed on our campus, but I would not be surprised if we end up with the same rule. Right now, this week, Sandra Snow is doing an online choral workshop for people actually all over the world, about 15 of them. And she has 3 other colleagues, and they are all they got permission to all be in the same room to teach it, but they have to wear masks. So I would not be surprised if in the fall we're required to. I talked to a colleague in Illinois today, and there's an Illinois they've already been told that in any university that comes back, everyone who's in anytime they're in a face-to-face situation must wear a mask.
Has anyone done any singing with masks on yet to see how bad it really is? I'm just curious how bad it really is.
I shared a link on in the chat that has a recording of Jesu mein Freude that was done by a choir in Germany, and they were singing with masks on, and it's actually quite surprising to see how beautiful successfully
Right.
was done. And it's one of the things that I'm most worried about is just, oxygenation and making sure that people are not becoming faint in terms of being able to breathe in sufficient ways as they're singing with masks. But it's an interesting, I've been using my mask, which is my ski mask, that just I can pull up over my face, but it goes down all the way down to my throat. But it actually gives a lot more space within the mask itself for air to be there, and some things with blockage. And I thought to myself, what would it be like? It would be hot, certainly, but what would it be like if there was some kind of a mask that was allowed for a longer space, so that things could be done differently? I don't know. It's interesting. Masks, I imagine you've probably seen things in the Chronicle and the New York Times and Inside Higher Ed with the things that have been asking. Masks are going to be required here in classes, but the really big thing is what's going to happen in the dorms, and what's going to happen in these places where students are getting together and they're on weekends and they're, will masks make any difference statistically if they're wearing them in class, but they're not wearing them outside of class? I mean, it really is an important question to be asking, I think.
Two things. I guest conducted choir early in the semester before COVID-19 hit, and there were actually many students in the choir that were already wearing masks just because they did it every single day, and they seemed fine. To be honest, it was, I'm trying to think how long the rehearsal was. It was maybe an hour. And so I don't think oxygenation should be a huge issue, because there are people who sing and rehearse in masks all the time anyway. I also saw a link. Well, it wasn't a link. It's not available for sale yet, but there was a kind of a cheesy commercial for a new kind of face mask called the resonance mask. So I bookmarked that, and I'll be keeping an eye on it. I just wanted to reply with that about the masks, that there are people who sing in masks all the time. And so I think that's going to be okay. I do think that your point about the college students is key. I mean, at Western, I was watching this I was traveling at the time, and when everything got shut down and Western shut down their classes, I saw that the mayor of Kalamazoo had to call a state of emergency for the city, because the college students, after classes had been shut down, were planning a massive house crawl with thousands of students. So I do think that's real. One of my alma maters is having all of the students sign an honor code that dictates what kinds of conducts are acceptable in a pandemic. Has anybody's college talked about that? I know Western hasn't. We just called a state of emergency.
I think there is some places will require a release, signing a release letter for contracting the virus in a particular environment. But I think it's very important for us as professors and instructors, and for our institutions, to have some sort of a protection as far as liability goes, because it's going to be hard, and people will still be getting sick, and having the regulations in place will give us this extra protection of not getting shut down because we didn't do something right. And if somebody gets sick, it will be their personal responsibility. Ultimately, it will be everybody's personal responsibility of protecting themselves and others, but the regulations have to be in place. I actually also saw that video of the mask, the singer's mask with the extra space and membrane inside that allows for breathing, and they said when you take a breath, your mask is not going to go into your mouth. That was funny. But yeah, I saw that, and I was wondering if anybody had any thoughts on that mask for singers in particular.
You have to be quiet.
Woof, woof.
He's being very needy right now.
Our musical theater department is testing out clear masks right now, or they're fabric with a little clear panel so you can see the mouth.
That's creepy.
That's totally creepy.
Yes, but I mean, can you imagine being in theater and you need to act and I'm smiling.
True.
Gold Company going to be singing live?
Greg's still working it out. He's actually talking about recording projects. I mean, his background is the LA recording scene anyway.
Yeah.
So he talked about it being a really good opportunity to do that. And because they are amplified,
Right.
they can stand really far apart. And so he's talked about getting in-ear monitors, so they're not even tied to the physical monitor location on the floor. So
Yeah.
I believe he'll be running Gold Company, but smaller than usual, not as large as 16, probably 8. And GC2, I don't think is going to be larger than 12.
I was wondering because we're doing we have vocal jazz at Henry Ford College too, and I was wondering about using, say, the band room and spreading out using 6 or 8 singers, and each singer has their own microphone and their own monitor speaker. We can't afford the ear monitors, but we have lots of floor monitors, and whether that might be worth trying to do.
I actually inquired about that at Western for at least my top classical choir, because Roomful of Teeth, for instance, all of their rep was amplified. And I know that not all of my singers can handle that rep, but I might be able to get 8 who can. And so I've been looking at the technology of setting up mics and monitors so that they can stand pretty far apart. The issue, Greg tells me, is the amount of time it takes to set it up. And then you also need a trained person to run your mixing board. So add another person into the room. So, and that for classical choirs, we don't have that in place.
Yeah, you have to train the students to do the cleaning, I think, because to have a person or a crew come and clean it each time it's used will take forever too.
Well, Greg is actually requiring his students, I believe, as our last conversation, he said that he'll require them to buy a mic and cable package. So they'll all be required to have a certain kind of mic and their own cable. And so there's no they'll disinfect their mics, but they always have the same one and they bring it with them.
Must be nice to have students who can afford that.
Well, not sure that's the case, but they're looking at donors to cover that cost. And their current system is wireless, but he's talking about for private lessons, they use cabled mics. So much to look at there. I haven't wrapped my head around it yet.
All right, I guess another question that I have for everyone is, in the event, for those of you that are going to be completely 100% online, or if we, by order of our governor or our institution, are put in a position where we go from rehearsing in person to needing to be online again. I'm curious to know about contingency plans and what you all plan to do for instruction. Before, I think all of us were kind of caught off guard, and I mean, if somebody told me at Christmas time we would be in where we are right now, I wouldn't have believed them. You know, everything has come such a long way. But I'm curious about contingency plans for the fall. You know, if we do go online, you know, what are your plans?
So this is a cry, Brandon. Yeah, this is a little unconventional, but I fully anticipate things shutting down again. And so I reached out to our composition department, and we're working on a collaboration where there will be a 20-minute multi-movement work where students can sign up to write a movement to be performed over Zoom. So the whole idea is that latency is a compositional restriction for them. So educationally, it's a good opportunity for the composition students, and for us, it gives us the chance to actually perform live. I can't imagine it's going to be amazing music, but in my opinion, there's more of a sense of reaction and collaboration that way. and that the music is supposed to be embracing the lag. So
That's
that's one thing we have going on.
We commissioned a piece, Vanguard Voices in Dearborn does a lot of world premiere pieces, and we commissioned a composer to write a piece during this period. 2 months ago we wrote it. 3 weeks ago we started rehearsing it with Zoom, where everybody's muted, but I'm still leading the rehearsal, you know, from the piano and demonstrating and commenting on how everybody sounds as a joke because I can't hear them. And then we'll be doing a couple of rounds of virtual chorus recordings and sharing those with the composer to see how we're doing and how it's coming, and then get to the point of hopefully releasing it. I mean, the idea is the composition composed in order to be learned this way and premiered this way.
Our jazz professor here did an interesting thing with, he collaborated with one of the SUNY colleges, SUNY Brockport, I think, and he had his jazz students recording improvisations or recording new music, and then they were sending and collaborating it with dance students at SUNY, and the dance students were then recording video to the music that was being done. It was going back and forth between the collaborations, and sometimes then more music would be written or played, and then more dance. And then he ended up having a presentation he did online with all of the projects that were then placed online for these compositions. It would be interesting to see if there was opportunities to collaborate in some ways with very small vocalists that might be singing, and then someone reacting to it, and then sending it back and forth, and then sending it out to another person to be able to put some movement to it. I think it was a pretty successful experience for our students.
I'm going to jump in and add that Calvin is partnering with a diagnostic company, and that would provide, I don't know, thousands and thousands of tests, so that before we all go in, all the students and faculty will have to get the COVID-19 test, and then to be repeated if need be. They announced it several weeks ago. It was a deal done with some kind of a local diagnostic company, and I'm wondering if anybody else is doing that kind of, you know, mandatory testing for everybody that's on campus, faculty, staff, all the students.
Michigan Tech has some testing that's happening on campus that where they're able to do the actual results from the tests and make the analysis for the tests there, but it hasn't been ramped up in a way yet where all of the students would be required to come in, but they're looking at trying to spread out the orientation period, whether there's a possibility of spreading out over a longer period of time where students are coming up in slower waves. But I think Pearl, that's a very interesting idea of having everybody. I think it would be really great if the whole community like that could be tested.
What's the liability or legal aspects of, like, I guess you're saying having them all be tested, but if someone tests positive, does that mean that they're not allowed on campus? I know that sounds like a stupid question, but can you legally do that?
You know, we have a good number too of international students, some of whom actually stayed through the semester. So I think they're working on like reconfiguring the dorms so that there's a quarantine area for those who come down with it. Yeah.
We're doing something similar at NMU, and the plan is that, yeah, unless they get a clear test, they're not allowed on campus. But you're right, I don't know what the legal ramifications are of that.
You have to plan anybody that's going to be working live. I would think the kind of music, like you're not going to be doing 16-part a cappella aleatoric pieces. You're going to be doing 4 or 6, maybe 8 at the most. You have to do pieces that you can suddenly be missing half your choir, right?
So I have this question in this, God forbid, in a scenario where one of us gets sick and we are out of operations for 2-3 weeks, and then we have to stay another week or two to completely clear the virus, and in the likelihood of which we're out of our rehearsal room for about a month. That's 1/3 of the semester, technically. So what happens then?
We call David and see if he's got any graduate students who can come and bail us out.
Okay, good. It's a real potential. Once we start moving around, being around people more, it becomes quite a bit of a possibility that we get sick.
Joel, I've got a question. Has anybody else had a student who's had COVID-19? One of my students did have it, and it took her 5 or 6 weeks before she could even phonate vocally again and certainly breathe enough to be able to sing. Has anybody else had students that have experienced it?
Yeah, I haven't personally.
I'm wondering if anybody has considered reducing the amount of rehearsal time. So for example, if we would typically meet 3 days a week in person, just to minimize that exposure to meet once a week or twice a week. Has anybody who's gonna do some in-person rehearsals considered that?
Yeah, absolutely. Shorter rehearsals. I don't know if I'll be meeting fewer times in a week, but I will not be. My rehearsals here are usually an hour and 45 minutes long, and all the research says that the longer you're together, the higher the risk. It's going to be shorter. I'm not going to be in the room with anybody for an hour and 45 minutes.
Kind of like Will, I see them like my SETB choir 4 times a week. I don't think that I'll see all of them 4 times a week. They'll go on some kind of rotation. So I will divide them up into teams, and maybe you got, this group meets Tuesday, Thursday, this group meets Wednesday, Friday. It's 1 credit. So there are ways that I can work around that 1 credit. And shorter time is it maybe like 30 instead of 50 minutes or whatever. But I'm kind of like Will in that way, that I have some of that flexibility because it's a 1 credit course.
And the other thing that I'm considering also is to we all would like our students to work on their music outside of rehearsal. And so there may be, one of the trade-offs that they may have for not being in the room nearly as long as they usually are is that we'll be requiring them to do some recording of their own work, which basically recording a practice session, or giving them a passage that we would normally be working on at that other rehearsal that we're not going to have, and that they'll just record themselves doing their part and send that in.
How about my choral coach, which will automatically assess whether they're singing the right notes and in the right tempo. Have you guys seen?
I don't know if that's
my choral coach thing. Yeah, they sing it in that, and the computer program judges how well they're doing, and you could say, well, you have to get an 80, on the easy level of this in order to pass the class, and it's hilarious, frankly, but it might be a fun. I'm just hoping that everything that we do differently this year that will be novel enough to make it interesting, to keep people interested for a year, and then hopefully a year from now we can get back to business as we'd like to be.
I'm thinking of maybe some of those that I do by Zoom, where I walk through each piece. Or if you are in this team that's doing this piece, I will walk you through. I will play it on my piano, and then kind of, so everybody can start on the same page, because they'll come in different levels. But I'll also be assigning their groups based on their reading and and other musicianship levels. So kind of planning it accordingly, that they, the ones who are less experienced won't feel so overwhelmed. But I will do some introductory things where then we're not meeting in person, but then they'll hear me play, and as I talk through the details.
how is everyone going about auditioning for auditioned ensembles? I don't know if that was a sigh of relief or a sigh of crying.
I just ask my returning students to enroll. Just as long as you enroll, I'm fine. And then I'll handle if there are anybody who's interested, then they'll have to send me tapes. But I did not. Normally, I re-audition all my choirs at the end of the school year. I just took that away and just say, you want to come back? I'm more than happy for you to come back. Just enroll and you're good.
I haven't figured out how to do sight reading over video. I'd like to be able to do the auditions over video if I could, but I don't know how to do sight reading over the video, and you can't really do vocalization very well over video either. Anybody has any ideas? I'd love to know.
Mike, sorry. I was gonna say, for sight reading, you can have an excerpt on your screen and then share your screen, and the person on the other side will see the example, and then they will sing it back to you.
Good. I don't know why I didn't think of that. That's good.
But you would have to do it one-on-one. Well, of course, auditions are one-on-one. But that's probably the simplest way. You just share your screen with the sight reading excerpt, and they will have to sing it for you.
That's great. Thanks.
If they have, and you can even give them the starting pitch by singing it yourself or something like that.
Does anybody else do callbacks for their select ensembles? That's something I inherited from the previous directors of choral activities at Western, and so we've always done callbacks. How is that being approached if you do that?
Well, I think I was thinking, because I do a quartet callback sometimes. I was thinking of some sort of music -1, where you have three of your experienced singers, record a passage, and then give them that to work with and sing back to.
I'm thinking more along the lines of what Pearl is going to do, which is I often will have a pretty substantial auditioning process, but this year it might just be, I might just assign ensembles. Just for this current situation, I'm not sure that any of our choirs are going to look really like how they have in the past. So if we have a top number of 15 or 20 in a choir, instead of having larger groups, we might just have 6 or 7 groups. So I'm thinking about doing something based on genre, not necessarily on ability. So if those who would like to study intensely some vocal jazz for one semester, who would like to try to put together a voce 8 kind of ensemble, who would like to do some musical theater scenes, I don't know. And just letting it just be different for this semester and see how that turns out. I'm hopeful that by December, we will have some more treatments and we'll know a lot more about this virus. And so perhaps second semester, we might go back to what would be typical, but then again, we might not. So, but that's what I'm thinking.
Do we really think we might be back in January? I'm just sort of planning for the whole year, so I don't have to actually worry about it. The planning I'm doing is for the whole school year, with the next hope of getting together, a year from fall. But again, in the university, you have a different situation,
I'm holding out hope. I've read some interesting things on a couple of the vaccines. And, in my mind, if we can at least prevent people from perishing, that would be a good step in the right direction. I don't know how I'm optimistic, and that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
I don't know, probably about a month ago, I stopped watching the news because it was so depressing. So I'm not sure what the latest information is on when they are predicting a vaccine may be available for it. Does anybody have that latest information? Are there predictions out there right now?
There's only one person predicting sooner than January, and everybody else is predicting after January. And so, you also have to wait to actually administer the vaccination, right?
Right.
We're looking for treatments too, though. So, that's why I'm just punting till next year, and I don't want to take that chance.
Right. Yeah, so as far as contingency plans, one of the things that I've thought about for Olivet, both the band director and I have thought about, if we do go completely online again, where there would be opportunities for the students to rehearse some of the music. They could rehearse it on their own, and there would be assessments along the way just on their learning the music, but taking more of a portfolio style of approach, where one component of the portfolio would be to learn pieces. So in the event that there is a vaccine in January or February or something like that, that the students would have repertoire learned. So when they come back, at that point, we're able to start assembling some of the rep versus, starting from scratch on day one. But that would be one component of that. Another component for us might be like a sight reading approach. A lot of my recruitment efforts and pulling students to Olivet, have been fruitful in some ways, but a lot of the students that I'm getting, they don't read well. So something that would really help strengthen those reading skills as another component of that portfolio. And then the last component would be, of course, helping them. We have a lot of followers right now in the group, but helping them to develop some musical independence. And maybe there would be some individual instruction that I would give them, via Zoom or recordings, pre-recorded music that they would have, where we can begin to work on developing some confidence and some independence, so that I have more than just one or a couple of leaders in a section.
Virtual chorus is good for that, because everybody has to sing their own part by themselves, and that's what I've been finding out with the few that I've done, is that people that are used to singing surrounded by the safety of a section really have to sing their own part by themselves, even if they've got a guide track in their ear, which is what makes it possible. But still singing it by themselves is exactly what you're talking about right there. Independence plus also precision.
Right. And these are good examples of the opportunity that this situation creates. Looking for those opportunities when we can find them.
Have any of you all had any luck or any success with real-time synchronous ensemble singing? Everybody's shaking their heads. Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay.
Ian Howell at NEC has been playing around with SoundJack, and he put out a guide on his website for how to use it for low latency simultaneous music making. They've done ensembles of 4 at least. It seems to work best with 2 to 4 people, but you need a hardwired internet connection and some pretty good technical expertise in terms of software and hardware. If one person in the ensemble is using poor Wi-Fi, then the whole thing is done. But so it is possible to do it.
But when we're talking then about maybe having to go back to all online, all of you are thinking about something other than choir rehearsal at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess my thought with what I shared with all of you is where are my students at now? And, if we are able to come back, what could we possibly give them during this time that will help them to be better equipped to be an ensemble singer once we do come back together. So that's where those ideas came from, but I'm loving a lot of the other ideas I'm hearing to implement into that.
Yeah, a couple of the projects I've done so far, virtual chorus, some of the choristers have turned in more than one voice part for them. And so, you can even get some of your talented students to say, here, take this 4-part male chorus piece or this 4-part women's piece, and you record all 4 parts. It's a great skill to develop for studio singing.
You know, when we went online in March, I did written assignments. So, comparing different performances of this one piece, and then they wrote 1 to 2 page reaction paper. I was surprised at how well I held on to them. I think I had one student who dropped, one that I gave an extension with incomplete, but the rest of them, every week they turn in their assignment. I don't know that they will do that again. I any more of them if I do that in this month. It was very interesting because the things that I was telling, I always say, what was the costume that we wear when we sing Renaissance choral music? And so it was a great way for me to see what they absorbed and what they didn't absorb. More so what they absorbed was very nice. But it was a lot more work because I was reading many, many papers every week. And that was kind of to tide us over to something that they knew. They had learned those pieces. And so they brought those music, and then I sent in links to different YouTube performances. Something that I might do if we go back online, but not the way I did it last semester, because I will lose so many of them.
Right, we all learned a lot. I kind of involved them in repertoire selection, sort of the process that I'm normally going through in choosing repertoire. I just involved them in that, and since it was March, I put up some brackets and made March Madness. And so they were given, in each bracket they were given pairs of pieces, and they had to listen to them and then decide. And we had Final Four and all that.
Well, we've been discussing now for almost an hour and a half. I certainly don't want to cut this short if anybody has more things that they would like to discuss or questions. But I also don't want to keep you all where you feel like you have to stay on sorry, I was trying to move something around here and almost hit the end session button. That would not be good. So yeah, I certainly don't want to close it down if there are more things that want to be discussed, but I don't want to just, take up all of your time unnecessarily either. So anything else, any other questions or comments that anybody?
Maybe we can follow up with some sort of idea bank, that as some of our plans sort of solidify over the summer, if we can just kind of collect that so that people can see that, especially around the people who are going to try to do rehearsals in terms of spacing and face masking and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, and it's one of those things too, you all can, certainly let me know if you would like to see this happen again, maybe once we get the results of some of the studies that are out there, maybe it's something, we want to do again, or if not, we just communicate via email and some other conversations. But anyhow, anything else, guys?
Welcome welcome Brandon, welcome Eric, good to see you. Good. Best wishes with getting things started in these times.
Yeah, and thank you, Clayton, for all of your leadership during this time too. I appreciate.
Well, we're gonna
all that you've done.
We're gonna put together some sort of virtual fall conference, and so that will be more about it later. We'll tell you.
Yeah, sounds good.
Watch your news.
Sounds good. Thanks again, everybody, for being here, and enjoy the rest of your summer.
Okay. Bye, everybody.
Take care.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, folks. Bye.